name is Jessica Arthur with Cape Fear Family Law. We're here today to talk about domestic violence and specifically the forms you need to fill out when you file for a domestic violence protective order.
So I need to file a domestic violence action?
Based on what you've told me on the consult, you absolutely do. Based on the violence, based on him hitting you, your bruises, this is something absolutely you need to do as soon as possible. The quicker the better.
How much will that cost?
So to file it at the courthouse, it's absolutely free. In fact, Domestic Violence Shelter can do it all in office for you. If you'd like us to handle it for you, including the hearing, our fees typically run between $750 to $3,000. That's the high end. That's if you're looking at 6 witnesses, things like that. But on average, I'd say it typically costs around $1,000.
What documents do I need to fill out?
There's a packet of documents you need to fill out. The most important thing, of course, is the complaint. That's what's going to tell the judge exactly what happened. You also need to fill out, if there's children, affidavit of status of minor child. There's a cover sheet you're going to need to fill out. But again, the complaint, that's what the judge is going to look at. That's the most important thing.
How do I fill out the complaint?
That's a very good question. You fill out the complaint by, it's a fill in the blank. You go through and answer the questions. You want to make sure you're as specific as possible and that it's all relative in time. That's the most recent stuff that you can possibly put in there.
He's abused me for years. What do I put in here?
That's a really good question. You want to put the stuff that's happened most recent because that's what the judge wants to hear about. You want to make sure that it's what happened where you told me about last week where he came and attacked you with a frying pan. That's what you want to put in, not where 3 years ago that he pushed you down a flight of stairs. While that can be important, that's not what the judge wants to hear about when they're determining if they're going to give you an ex parte order or not.
I filed a previous domestic violence action but dismissed it and took him back. Do I have to tell the court about it?
Absolutely. You need to make sure you're as honest with the court as possible. That's going to help your credibility. And the court needs to know the good, the bad, and the ugly. If you go back and look at a case like, let's use Rihanna as example. Not all of her facts were good, but Chris Brown physically assaulted her, hurt her. She was able to get a domestic violence protective order against him, even though he claims that she was saying all these horrible things about him while they were stuck in a car. The court needs to know the good, the bad, and the ugly to make a good decision.
He kicked the dog recently. How do I get the dog?
Okay, so that's absolutely something that we can deal with in the domestic violence protective complaint. The courts will let you back in to get certain property, and that's part of it. They can absolutely let you back into the house to get property, and the police will escort you.
He has a handgun which he waves around when he's angry. He doesn't get to keep that, does he?
Absolutely not. That's something you need to put in your complaint because he can be required by the court to surrender all of his firearms. So that's something you desperately need to put in your complaint. That's very important and very relevant for the judge.
Okay, what about the children?
We talked earlier about you have to fill out the affidavit of status of minor children. That's because you can ask for temporary custody in a domestic violence complaint that you'll be filling out. So you need to make sure that you put that in there. In fact, you can make sure that he can't go near the children's school, their daycare, anything else like that to make sure you're all safe.
He sometimes threatens to kill himself. Is that important?
Absolutely. That is a major factor of considering things like this. You need to make sure that that goes in there. One, there might even be some sort of psych hold that he might need to go under depending on exactly what he's threatening. But that absolutely needs to go in there. That's very important, especially if it's happened in front of the children. That's stuff that the court takes into consideration.
How much information do I need?
You need the most relevant information, the most close in time information to put in here. You're not trying to throw in everything from the beginning of time. You want to make sure that the most recent incident, the incident that drove you to take this step, is what you detail for the court. You also don't want to just put in there, well, he's mean. That doesn't work. You have to be very specific about what happened. You just told me about how he attacked you with the frying pan. So you need to go into detail. We were getting ready to eat dinner. He started screaming at me. He went to the kitchen. He came back with a frying pan and started hitting me with it. You need to make sure that that's all very clear.
But what about what happened 6 months ago?
The court, to issue a domestic violence ex parte order, needs to know what's happened now, to know if you need protection now. If it happened 6 months ago, that's important, but that's not how a court determines if you need immediate protection now. So I would not put that necessarily in your complaint, but that's absolutely important information. So That's stuff that you can testify about previous history. You can't put in there that he has a previous history of being violent, but the stuff that you want to focus in on the complaint is what's happened most recent in time.
He's a police officer and in the military, in the National Guard. Can he still keep his job?
That might be a big issue, especially if he surrenders his firearms. Most of those people are required to carry firearms. So there's a process that we'd have to go through. There's other outcomes that we can look at as far as him keeping his job, but his job might be an issue. He can still keep his job. There's special statutes in place that make sure that, because clearly if he has to surrender firearms, that's going to have an effect, right? So, but there are special statutes in place that allow him, while he's on duty, to be able to keep his firearm. He has to be specially monitored. There's special procedures that are put in place. It could have issues on, though, if he needs special clearance to be able to work on different bases, things like that. But there are special provisions in place that would allow him to keep his job and be able to carry firearms only while he's on his job.
Thank God, because this form here says about spousal support. Can I get spousal support in this domestic violence action?
That is absolutely something that you can ask for, and the courts can order a temporary spousal support, just like temporary child custody. Eventually, the issues will have to be litigated in family court, but that's something they can absolutely put in place temporarily for you. So when you're filling out the complaint, there's a spot on here that puts up a place for automobiles, and the judge can order that you have sole possession of an automobile while this case is pending and even after. So first you need to file your complaint, and then if you get your ex parte order, the police will come and serve him with that ex parte order. If in the complaint, you can also ask for sole possession of the house, and he can't come so close to where you're living. So then he would be removed from the house at that point in time, so you could move back in during the pendency of this action. If you get the year-long order, then that's something that we can work on as well. But if you're denied the year-long order, then he can come back into the house. Not a problem. So the next step is you can hire us, and we're happy to help you with this. You can go down to the domestic violence shelter, or you can go downtown and file it yourself. So you could absolutely go downtown, file the complaint by yourself, talk to the judge, get your emergency ex parte order by yourself. That's absolutely something you could do. The big issues come up when you're preparing for trial, because you need to make sure that you have the right evidence, that the judge hears the right information that he needs to, according to the statute, to make the determination. This form is wonderful and it's very helpful, but it doesn't tell you everything you need when you're at court. And court can be intimidating. You want to make sure that you have someone there that can help you through, that knows exactly what the judge needs to hear.
Won't I just have to give them my complaint and then that's it?
No, unfortunately not. The complaint can get you the emergency ex parte order, but that's just a temporary stopgap order. That's not the year-long order that everyone's going in there hoping to get, to make sure that you're protected for the year. As far as when you actually go in for your hearing, though, that's not what the judge looks at. He will review your file, but you have to have a hearing. The other party gets to present evidence, including witnesses, and you get to present evidence, including witnesses. Because when you get the emergency ex parte, the judge only hears from you. So there's a lot of fear and anxiety that goes into getting this type of complaint, going down and talking to a judge, filling this out, putting this on paper. But this is so important. This will absolutely change your life, but it should change your life for the better. If you are thinking about doing this, if you have been a victim of domestic violence, you need to make sure that you protect yourself, protect your children, that you go down there, you take the steps necessary. The system's there to help, to protect you if you use it appropriately. When you file a domestic violence action complaint, there are no filing fees. So there's no excuse that I don't have the money, that I can't go down and pay those fees. There are no fees. So you need to make sure that if you need it, you go down. So if you're a victim of domestic violence, one other big step you need to take is make sure that you have a group, that you have support. Because getting the paper is the first and is one of the most important steps that you can possibly take. But that's not the only step. And unfortunately, that's where a lot of people fall short, is then they don't reach out, get the help they need, get the village that they need to make sure that they can follow through. Because getting the ex parte is the first step. You will then have a hearing, and that's when you can be granted the 1-year relief that you were asking for originally in your complaint. So you want to make sure that you don't just keep your eye on the ex parte, that you realize it's a process, and that you have everyone available to make sure that you can be as successful as possible. So now that you've watched my video, make sure you hit that little like button, really important. Make sure you subscribe to our channel.
So that way you're never out of the loop of any information you could possibly need. And if you have any questions at all, please make sure you put them under here. We'll make sure you get answers as soon as possible.